Well, hello, everybody. Welcome. So excited to be with you here today. And greetings here from Salida, Colorado. I have a really awesome show for you. And of course, you are here for the Live with Lesli show. I'm Lesli Bitel, business mentor and coach. And as most of you know, I work with integrative functional practitioners to help you build a business that you love. So, very passionate about that. And today I've got an awesome guest. I've gotten to know Stephanie. I mean, really,
Wow.
so here's the deal, guys. We've known each other for a while, like literally years, but I met her for the first time in person at Fancy. Can you believe that, Stephanie? Isn't that funny?
I know. It's so strange to know each other for so long and then finally connect. So wonderful.
It's so awesome.
Meet you.
So you guys are in for a huge treat today with Stephanie. And so Stephanie Hoffit. Okay, so I already messed it up. All right, we'll just say Stephanie from String Marketing.
There you go.
All right,
Right.
that's way easier. And so, what we're going to talk about today is finding and positioning your brand with a super strong point of view, and specifically the hidden ways to get your ideal client's attention. And, guys, this is an incredible topic because, as you know, especially in this busy online world, we have to grab their attention quick, right? We don't have a lot of time to stop the scroll is what it's really all about. So we're going to look at commonly overlooked assets that practitioners should leverage within their brand. So this is going to be super, super valuable. I'm sure I will learn a few things as well. So before we jump into the actual content, I'd like to turn it on over to Stephanie. And Stephanie, can you share a little bit about, your background, I know you've got a really cool story. Just a little bit about how string marketing came to be.
Yeah. So I started string marketing 13 years ago. I actually started working with authors and speakers at the time, and always have loved helping people get the word out about what they're doing and to elevate people up to the places that they should be and the voices that they should have. And so started out 13 years ago, and then through speakers and authors got connected with practitioners and really have been focusing on practitioners for the primary time in business for the past 13 years. And we're now focused on integrative and functional practitioners. And we call it real medicine marketing. That's our tagline. The reason why we say real medicine marketing is we think that food is a huge part of medicine. And it's a big passion of ours. So while we're experts in our own field, I have a full team that's supporting me. We're all passionate about how the role that food plays in our health. And so all the practitioners that we work with have some sort of approach that has to do with food. And we just absolutely love that. So and we've been doing it for quite a while. We've brought our expertise specifically to this field with private practitioners and have really honed those things in because you guys have very specific needs.
Oh, absolutely. And yeah, I mean, it is like a new language. So I really appreciate, I got to say, I really appreciate that you're highly niched, right? In the specific market, because it's just really, really important. Plus, I want to just say, I've seen your work, right? Like we have a lot of clients that overlap.
Yes.
And I mean, amazing. I could go on and on about, I look at their websites and the message and I'm blown away. So you guys do really, really high quality, of just beautiful work. So,
and I'm excited. I'm going to share some examples today because the best way to show some of these concepts is how does that look for practitioners? And I'm going to show some before and afters, like, hey, because this is for everybody. Sometimes the sites we put out, it's like, whoa, look at how great that person is. They must have everything together. It's like, well, they're just like you, just like all, everybody that's watching here today. And bringing that messaging, the visuals, things like that together is simpler than, and you have the assets you need to be able to market really well. And so That's why I want to be able to tell everybody today is that you have some valuable assets, and every single client that we work with, we're pulling those out, and it's just amazing what these practitioners do, and most of the time they're not realizing how valuable some of the things.
Oh my gosh! I mean, we could have a whole day workshop on that topic alone. I mean, honestly. Before we jump in, I would love to hear from our audience just a little bit. So why don't you give me a comment and just let me know where you're from. I'm sure I'll know many of you, but just kind of give us a little indication in terms of where you're from. And also, I don't know, give us a little idea in terms of like what some of your challenges are around marketing.
Yeah.
Because that's really what we're going to dig into. Yeah. And that way we can really make this super valuable and, hopefully get some of your questions answered. All right. So we've got, I can't see your name. It says Facebook user. That's all right. But Houston, Texas. Woo. Welcome.
Ooh,
love that. That sounds great.
Yeah.
I'm actually doing a talk for, I think it's the Western Texas Dietetic Academy.
Their annual meeting this year, this spring.
Meeting. So yeah, I'm doing that on Saturday.
Oh,
super excited. So I love Texas. Okay. Oh, we got another person from Minnesota, central Minnesota. So Stephanie's from Minnesota, right?
Yes, I am. Yeah, you might notice from the accent a little bit.
A little bit, not that much. And some of you guys know my daughter goes to University of Minnesota. So she is in Minneapolis studying environmental engineering at the M, as they say.
Yeah.
And gosh, I love going to Minneapolis to visit her. So, okay. So who else do we have here before we jump in? All right. So we've got Karen from central Minnesota. Her biggest challenge is knowing what to focus on in marketing. Okay. So
yes. I'm going to just show this particular side because that I have that on feeling overwhelmed with all the things that like everybody thinks that I have to do all of the pieces that are marketing, and it's overwhelming. And that's not necessarily the case with every private practitioner. There's certain activities and knowing what those are and pinpointing is important. So yeah, that is on my list of the most common things I hear from practitioners.
Yeah, it's just that overwhelm of like, and I don't know about you, Stephanie, but and the rest of you here. I know I've shared this story before, but when I had my nutrition practice, what I used to do, this is before I knew better. Raise your hand if you can relate. I would just be all over the place. I would try a little of this, a little of that, a little of this, a little of that. And I would just like jump around from thing to thing, kind of like I call it the shiny object syndrome, right? Like every new shiny object that came my way, I was on it. But the problem is that I never dug deep. It was like a mile wide and a centimeter deep, right? So
that's exactly it. Knowing those value pieces are so important.
And it just got super frustrating. And guys, let's be honest, I have an MBA, right? But these businesses you're dealing with human beings that are sick. It's different. It's not like selling a widget. It's so different. I'm sure Stephanie can relate, right? It's just
private practitioners, you have to connect on a very different level with your clientele. They have to see a different kind of messaging, and the traditional marketing techniques aren't always the best fit for practitioners. There are some traditional ones that work, but there needs to be compassion in your marketing. There needs to be connecting on a whole different emotional level. But then backing up with expertise and science, and how does that all play into it? And so I think, today I think you're going to find a lot of those pieces, like kind of connecting those dots for you.
Awesome. So before we jump in, let's just acknowledge the folks that we have. We've got Courtney. Hey, Courtney.
Hey, Courtney.
Do you know Courtney?
We know Courtney. Yeah.
Great. Welcome. So happy to have you. Let's see. We've got Dr. Ann from from Bowie, Maryland, and her challenges are finding the right words and and places to capture my ideal audience. Okay,
Yeah.
that's a super common one. Let me just go through a couple more real quick, just so we know. All right, welcome. We've got Teresa, Brooklyn. We'll be heading to NYC, Stephanie and I, gosh, in just about a
February.
month for IHS. So hope to see you there. All right. So I don't know who this is, but this person struggles with messaging, how to speak my client's language without overwhelming them with too much information, like going down that clinical rabbit hole where they're like, their eyes glaze over.
Yeah, glazing over with too much rational information. Yep.
And then we've got Teresa. Welcome. Biggest challenge, not knowing what to focus on and getting client followers on social media. Amazing. Okay. And this person probably is relating to my shiny objects story. We have Question Everything from Austin, Texas. And yeah, so she also is feeling overwhelmed and all over the place. And then how to reach the biggest audience of my ideal clients without spending a ton of cash. Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, guys. I really appreciate that. And for those of you that are going to catch me on the replay, feel free. Let me, we do go back and check comments. So let's continue this communication even after the live video is over. So, all right, let's go ahead and jump in to this awesome content that we have for you. So I'm going to turn it over to Stephanie, and we'll just kind of have a conversation throughout. It's a really low key conversational kind of presentation.
Yes, I want to be able to illustrate some points, but also show you some examples here. And so I think we've identified, these are the issues. If you're having wrong fit leads, low value clients, just not getting your hours worth, overwhelmed with all the things or stagnant growth. Everybody experiences one or all of these things at certain times in their business. It's not anything to be hiding. And so there are ways to be able, there are assets that you have that you likely are not recognizing and leveraging. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. So there's three areas. I'm going to talk about three key elements of conversion. One is connecting emotionally. Two is showing them why they should listen to you. And then three is show them how to engage. So I'm going to go through each one of these. I'm going to just talk about it briefly, and then I'm going to show you some examples of what that means and what it looks like visually with some of our client examples and how they've done it really well. So first, let's talk about connecting emotionally and where that fits into the picture. So obviously, when we're marketing, and especially for private practitioners, just like we were just saying a moment ago, it's different for practitioners. Marketing is different in your world. It's not the easiest. And reason being is there's a different level of trust that needs to be built when people want to engage with practitioner. So marketing needs to be consumer centric. That's a base principle for marketing. And what we see a lot of times is practitioners are really good at compelling rationally. This is what I do. This is what my background, expertise, which are great things to do that. But on the other end, the thing that's missing is connecting emotionally. And that's essential for really building that trust before they're engaging. So that's why it's really important. So what can you do to connect emotionally? What are the key elements in your branding that can connect emotionally? One, a story. Now, it doesn't have to be the story, like it's really great if you have a personal story that you experienced exactly the pain point that your client experienced. That's helpful. You can illustrate that. But it doesn't have to be. It could be a family member. It could be how you're affected by something. So telling story and why you're doing what you're doing is helpful. A passion or a purpose. So it could be that, a cause. It could be whether it's political, not necessarily political, but just some sort of a cause that you're passionate about. It could be something like that, where you're connecting those dots for them and you're looking for people who are also passionate about that same thing. You can connect on the level of values. And so if you identify your company values, or even just if you're a solo practitioner, just what your values are, and how does that connect with those, how is that pertinent and important to the clients that you serve? Do they need to have the same values, or what is it about those values but that they're going to admire? And then personal interest. This is always something that is kind of glossed over. Like, people are interested in dogs. They might be interested in mountain climbing, different things like that. If you're interested in mountain climbing and you have a practice where you're wanting to work with people who are just active, illustrating the fact that you're into mountain climbing can make them even more interested in you. And that's kind of an extreme example, but don't discount your personal interests in your branding and talk about it. So a short, quick list there with connecting emotionally.
Yeah, I love the story component. And, I was just talking to actually a brand new client today about this,
Yeah.
and an MD who is in Florida. And we were talking about, like, it was a super interesting conversation just because she wasn't aware, like, as a practitioner, as a medical doctor, um, I think quite often we are, well, even as, all practitioners, right? Whatever kind of practitioner you are, I think we're kind of led to believe that we should keep our story to ourselves, right? Like,
Right. Like it doesn't
like,
matter.
it's super private. Like you'd be overstepping
Yeah.
your
Professional
boundaries, right?
Mhm.
Now, to be clear, maybe that's true when you work for a hospital in a clinical setting for somebody else, right?
Right.
But I am here to say in private practice, when you are, especially in the super busy online space,
Mhm.
it's the opposite.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not oversharing, right? You're
No.
not oversharing, but what you're doing with your story is creating a connection with your audience. You're letting them know why you care.
Yeah.
Why is this so important? And I think the other thing is you're kind of taking yourself a little bit off the pedestal slightly.
Mhm.
You're becoming
Accessible.
more accessible,
Yeah.
right, to your patient or client.
Yeah.
So it really is a
Absolutely. And I think that's so important. I think it doesn't only attract people to you and draw them in, it also helps them refer people to you because you have
totally.
a story. Oh, and by the way, and it's a memory tool. They'll
Yes.
remember that somebody is a rock climber. Oh, that's interesting. Or, oh, they had that same experience or whatever it is. They'll retell that story to somebody else.
Yeah, so not to get off on too much of a tangent, but, there are a couple of doctors that I know of. I don't know them personally,
Mhm.
but I know of them, and I totally remember them because of their story.
Exactly. Because
It
it
makes
makes them
them so
human.
memorable.
It makes them
One
human.
is, just FYI, if you wanna check out a couple good stories, is, Dr. Amy Myers. Some of
Oh,
you might
yeah.
know her. She's in Austin. I've never met her, but, like, she's, when I think of, like, functional medicine and thyroid and autoimmune, that's who I think of because
Yeah.
of her story. And
Absolutely.
then, there's Dr. Michelle May from Am I Hungry? She does a phenomenal job of connecting with her own story as well, which is,
Yeah.
her own personal struggle. So don't be afraid to integrate your story into your brand.
Absolutely. And all of those things are so important. So here's a couple of examples of how this looks in play. So Julie came to us. She's from Redding, California. We rebranded her as Redding Nutrition. The reason being was that she was really focused locally. People in the local area they admire their surroundings so much. It's an important aspect to life in Redding. And she valued it. She's active, she's out there, and her clients are feeling a disconnection with that important aspect of their life, the outdoors, the beauty around them, all of that kind of stuff. And so in her branding, while we might not be saying, well, we might say in her brand, get out and enjoy life again, right?
Mhm.
But we're visually telling the story of just like, it's important to my clients to be out in nature. And that's a value that we share in this particular community.
Yep.
Highlight it. Recognize that it's important to you. On her about page, you'll notice that it goes into a little bit about background about her and how she's, passionate about these things as well. So that's a good illustration of just visually showing a passion or a connection value. Here's another example. Karuna for You, Kate Thomas. She was one that came to us, and she also is connecting with her local community, but in a bigger sense. The value here is health at every size. She's a health at every size practitioner, but she also she wanted it to feel welcoming. The important aspect of this one is it's really hard to find representative images in this particular space, and so we did custom illustration or did illustrations for her. But I think the important part of this one too is discover true self-compassion. She's really wanting to be welcoming, open, and visually showing people that she's bringing everybody in. And so she's connecting with that value of self-acceptance in her particular practice. And so you can see visually how this made a big difference in her practice to illustrate what you can tell right away that, hey, that's for me. If you're looking for that, you're going to recognize yourself there. All right. So then I'm going to share a worksheet with all of you guys to actually go through and do this stuff. So I'm not going to go through these questions, but I think that from the examples that I'm showing, I think the important thing about so when we talk about story and passion and values, it's not just words you have to say, it's the visuals that you choose to use. So Redding, California, beautiful views. We're showing the values with image styles, right? So you can express these things by explaining them, as a story. You can illustrate them, you can tell a story, or you can even just list it out in bullet points so that they can clearly see that you have certain values, right? It's not that hard. You can take whatever you have right now and be able to implement these. And so, like I said, I am going to share a worksheet with you that has all these questions with little exercises. I'm trying to pull out some of these stories that you might not even realize are important.
So we have a question, and I think if you don't mind, I'll just kind of pause because I think this is it's a very common question that I get. What if you don't really have a personal story about like kind of your own personal struggle? I have some thoughts around that, but I'd love to hear what you have to say.
And we'll get into that a little bit in the second one here too. Okay. But I think I think this is great. It's okay if you don't have all of it. Don't look at this list and say I have to have the story, a passion, a purpose, like all. No. Yeah. You're picking certain things that you're highlighting and leveraging those things. So going back to feeling like you have to do all the things, don't necessarily take it that way. But there's other ways to connect. So let's talk about what that means. Showing them why they should connect with you. I want to talk about relevancy and differentiation. What relevancy and differentiation is. Relevancy is what attracts people to you, and differentiation says why you should choose you over others. Okay, so we have 3 bubbles here. The first one, your ideal client, where that intersects with you. So your values, your passion, your purpose, your background, expertise, all of those things. That's relevant language. It's what cuts to the heart, what connects emotionally. All right. On the other end of the spectrum here is the competition. The competition between, like, what's different between you and them? Who else can they go to solve the same problem? And what is it that you do differently? Now, this is the part where, so we just talked about connecting emotionally. Let's talk about what differentiates you and why they should choose you over somebody else. So this really comes background, experience, and expertise. Now, this might sound very rational. Those are 3 items that are typically listed under a rational reasons. These are my credentials. This is my education. That's not what I'm talking about here. We're talking about using these to show them what influences your effectiveness. Okay, so in your background, you might have, so for instance, and I'll show you some examples. We have a client, she's very direct, she's very processed, she sees the path to done, and some people really need that. Her personality and background in that particular way and expertise in process is actually a selling point. That might not seem very related, those 2 particular things, being a private practitioner and being process oriented, but it can play into a brand. It can also just be an experience. So if you had an experience in school, or you saw other people transforming, that can be a story in itself, experiences that you've had. and why that makes you effective. And then, of course, there's your expertise. So let's show some examples in this particular way. So True Course Nutrition, when Jill came to us, she was focusing on runners. And it was kind of funny because she got on the phone with us and she was like, I don't really want to work for the runners anymore. She didn't like it, but she's like, but I don't want to be a generalist. I don't know how. So we dug into, well, what are the things in your experience that you're bringing to the table here? We found out she had an experience with her husband, who's a pilot. She understood the world of pilots very well. And she had the expertise in nutrition and helping her husband in that particular way. And there's very specific things with pilots. And so we were able to help guide her to niche with pilots, come up with True Course Nutrition. She didn't see those two things as relevant, and how, like, her background as a dietitian and her experience with him as a pilot, and how unique that is, and how those two things could come together and actually be a huge asset in her brand. And she didn't have, it's a strong niche. She has specific information about that niche to be able to practice, and a story. So she actually had a few elements kind of come together on it. Another example here is Alicia Galvin, RD. She came to us, and she was kind of a generalist, or she was kind of launching her private practice, and she did look a lot like a generalist. But when we dove in, she was very, very specific, wanting to work with very difficult cases, has a deep background in that. And so we had to position her to be able to do that. And the interesting thing about this is that the person that she's trying to draw in is somebody who's actually done a lot for their health already and really has tried to figure this out. And we needed to position her to hit them right in that spot where it's like, okay, somebody coming here to work with Alicia needs to have already done a lot of things before they work with her, because she's going to only solve difficult cases and they have to invest in their health. And so positioning with that, leveraging that asset of hers, her background and expertise of being able to do this was extremely valuable, but positioning her to be able to do that with having science. So it's not always the right approach to just have science right there on the front page, or it's not always the right approach to have vegetables on the homepage. So a couple examples there. And then again, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to give you that worksheet, but yeah, explain, illustrate, tell a story, list it out. That you're always trying to, whatever you can do visually is ideal. So let's talk about show them the how, the third piece of this. So when we're working with people, we're always trying to drive people up to that potential aspirational benefit with their offering. We don't want people down here on the bottom competing on price. You're out, if you're a solo practitioner, you can't be competing on price hour for hour. That's an exhausting rat race. So this is the hierarchy of offerings and where you can compete on different levels. And what we want to do, practitioners should be up at that potential aspirational life change benefit, right? Because that's what you're actually able to do. However, the barrier for your customers in this particular way is that's very daunting. People want energy and vitality and all of those kind of things, but to get there, it seems very daunting. So if you just say, yeah, I can help you with that. It's hourly, just by each session at a time, it isn't necessarily going to work. So that's where your process and approach comes in. You need to show your clients what does a path to success look like? And illustrate how you do it. So process and approach might sound very similar, but they're two very different things. One, process is, what does path to success look like? So when you tell them that they can have energy, vitality, longevity, and these very hard to achieve things when you're feeling not so great, they can see what that path looks like and they can trust that you're going to guide them there. And then your approach, illustrate how you do that. This can come at point of view, your philosophy, and make that visual. Whatever you can do to make a process and an approach visual is going to is going to be extremely valuable. And Leslie, I know you know a ton about this. I mean, obviously this is your world too, putting together. We like to visualize and make sure that this is illustrated, but I know, Leslie, you do a lot of work with practitioners in formulating this process.
I
And
do.
you want to
Yeah,
talk
I
about
love
that? I'd
that.
love to hear. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's such, yeah. So definitely I help my clients to create these programs and packages, all kinds of work around there. The thing that I've been teaching, I'd say more recently, like I don't know, over the past year and a half specifically, is really, really cool. It gets me super excited because it's so effective.
Yeah.
What I'm doing is helping my clients to take their entire body of work, right? Which is like huge, and put it into like 3 to 5 buckets, right? And to literally like create, I mean, it could be a graphic of a roadmap, right?
Right.
And what it does, all right. So the reason I started to do this is because I was getting my clients, my practitioners saying, during the enrollment calls, I'm getting kind of tripped up when the client is asking me a little bit about how I'm going to help them, right?
Right.
And they would go down a clinical rabbit hole.
Mm-hmm.
And it would just be like,
technical.
oh my God.
Technical every time. Yeah. And that's hard.
TMI, like, oh my God. So I'm like, okay, what they're really wanting to know is it's like your roadmap, but they want a high level. They don't want all the nitty gritty.
They just want to know they can get there and that it's not going to be so daunting to get there.
And they do. That's the key. And I can say, as a patient who has gone to functional medicine practitioners, who especially are in this a la carte model, the missing link always, like for me, so I can really relate to this, is I'm like, where's the end point here? Like, am I just supposed to kind of come and see you sort of whenever? I don't really.
People don't want to buy into that. They don't want to invest in that.
I want to get better. Like, here's my problem. I want to know that you've got a protocol, a solution that's going to get me to the end point, right? So it's super, super powerful.
Yeah. And I'm getting goosebumps because this is the beauty. Like, people that Leslie and I have both worked with, there's like some magic because they're coming when we're able to identify that somebody has a process or an approach. We're able to take that, illustrate it, and really draw it into all of their marketing things, and it comes out spectacular. It really is, and it's surprising. Most practitioners have an approach. They have a way they do it. You might not think that it is valuable. It is very valuable. How you get people to be successful is extremely valuable. And as much as it might feel in your head, there is a way to get that out. There is a way to make it either visual or listed or whatever there is. There's a way.
Pull it out of you.
Yeah, take it. Right. Leslie pulls it out and then we can illustrate it. I think it's really beautiful how that works. But if it's worth taking time to put thought into that. And this is how it can kind of come out to play. So for instance, Kim Braley, she is a practitioner. She was heavy into research on IBD for pediatric patients. Huge special diet for IBD, and was able to achieve, they have results achieving remission. And so she has a specialized approach. We were able to name that approach. We're able to brand that approach and give it a visual and explanation for her clients, especially as parents coming to a website. They are dealing with a child who's very sick. They need confidence in where they're going to invest their next dollar, because this can get very expensive for parents trying to solve issues, and for anybody trying to solve a health issue. They're trying to spend their dollars in the most valuable place. And if you can show them that I have a way to do it, I have a way to achieve your goal, there you go. You have a client that's invested in your process, invested in what you're doing, and all you have to do is draw out your process and do your best work. And I'll tell you what, if somebody comes here and they look at this and they're like, no, I'm not ready for that, or I can't see myself in that, that's okay, because you know what? They're not going to be a client that you're going to want to work with. They're not going to be a client that you want to be on a sales call with, because they're not going to see that value. But this draws people in, the people who are going to who want to get it done and be successful. and create that raving fan base, they're going to get this. And here's another example of approach. Oh, I accidentally have Kim's information on there again, but Radically Nourished. So Paula Strum, she has unique modalities in her practice that are all coming together. So she has, and some of the modalities, some people might think is woo-woo, and she was hiding this from her marketing completely. She was like, well, if I feel like somebody could go there, then I might bring it up in the clinic. And we were looking at, we're like, no, we just got to call it, we're going to call it mind energy. We're going to show how genetics, biology, and your mindset come together and affect your biology. And so we made, it's a fairly simple graphic, but this illustrates the way in which, and you don't always, these are two very visual ones. It doesn't always have to be visual, but mind energy itself, just naming, like getting to the crux of, well, what am I doing? Distill that down and being able to show people this. It does exactly like what Leslie is saying. It'll give you confidence in your practice, but it gives you confidence in your clients, and
yeah, this is beautiful. You guys do an amazing job with these graphics. Seriously.
Thank you so much.
It's like, okay, what do they say? A picture tells 1,000 words, right?
Yeah.
And your imagery is phenomenal. It really does the trick.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we enjoy being able to dig into these things, tell this story. And we really find these small little things that people are hiding, like Paula was absolutely hiding all of her modalities away while they were all science-backed and everything. But bringing them to the light and allowing a practitioner to really shine in all of the things that they're bringing to the table, that's attractive to a client. It's very attractive to potential clients. So I want to talk about the worksheet. So the worksheet that I have for you guys is, you can go to stringmarketing.com/asset and throw your email in there, and it will send you a worksheet to be able to draw the questions that we went through. And we can go back to a couple of those slides with the questions. Maybe it would be fun to discuss that with the audience, but it has a whole list of questions and things that you might have not thought of in your background that might be a story or an asset or a passion or a purpose that is feeding into what you do. And then you can go and figure out, well, how might I illustrate that? And if you're needing help with that, let us know.
Yeah. Well, we do have somebody who's asking. So what I'm hearing is, for sure, this is your area of expertise.
Absolutely. We like to tell stories visually. We like to, do specialized marketing plans to figure out what, like I was saying, all the things. If you're overwhelmed with all the things and you feel like you have to do all the things, to be able to distill that down, figure out what the right pieces are to do without investing a ton of money, or making sure you're getting the return for that's the big thing. It's not about what you're investing, it's about the return you're getting on your investment.
Right.
And so and marketing is all about that, figuring those right modalities. So yes, we help with design, but the big thing is we help with that strategy and figuring out what is that approach, and then going into that. And then of course with the pricing and packaging and sales and things like that Leslie brings to the table, working in conjunction. I'd love to go back to some of those questions slides.
Sure.
Let's talk to the audience about that.
Okay, so let's see here. All right. So yeah, go ahead. I'll let you just.
Yeah. So when this is in regards to show them why, your background, your experience, your expertise. So why did I choose the path that I did? Does anybody use this in their marketing, or do you have a story that you tell, or a piece that stands out to you? I'd love to hear from the audience on that. Like what are or maybe you're not using it in your marketing right now, but that you maybe could. I would love to hear what some people are thinking and what comes to mind in that way. And why am I effective in helping the people that I do? That's an important question. So I'm going to give you an example here, one that I don't have a visual example, but we had a client that just starting private practice, plant-based dietitian, And she had a PhD before she got her RD, and her PhD was in human change. So like how I can't remember the word for it, but how humans change, basically,
I
right?
love that.
And she said, well, my PhD is not relevant to, she was very much a process person too. My PhD is not relevant to my business. And we thought, oh, no, that's not true at all.
Relevant.
It's so relevant.
Like it's what you do.
Right.
Oh my gosh.
How much confidence would you have if you're trying to make a change, if you're trying to transition to a plant-based diet for whatever reason? What a daunting task, right? That's a big deal.
All about change psychology.
It's all about change psychology. So of course we had to leverage that in her brand. And she wasn't even going to say that she was going to maybe list it on her about page that she had a PhD, bury it. No, not at all. And so that made that experience of hers in education was so important to how she's effective with, knowing all about plant-based. Yes.
How she helps people. Oh my gosh, brilliant.
Yeah. So listing experiences that influence who you work with. So this is so now there's a difference here. There's why did you choose what you're doing? How are you effective? And then there's the who are you working with? Sometimes there's a reason why. So there's a reason why you choose to do what you do, or maybe there's a story that is behind what you do. And so I'll tell you the story about String's name.
Oh yeah, you've got a great story.
Yeah, so it seems so unrelated, but people love to hear the story. So String, the name of String came from when I was young. We were at my grandparents' for Easter, and which was in South Dakota, and it was thawing, and there was when there's water running down the street, and then there's ice. There's a little thing of ice over it, just enough where you can tap it and like push it down. And I was outside, I was pouting. I had gotten mad at my sister, something. I was pouting about something. So I'm outside kind of stomping the ice. My grandfather came out and he walked me. He's like, well, let's go for a walk. So we were walking down the street, and he pulled out of his pocket an invisible string and he gave it to me. And he said, well, tell a story. And so he's like, well, what's on the string? And so it turned into like this carnival that we're walking down the street with an elephant and all this stuff. And so this became my construct in my head of what imagination is and how you can create things and how you can make things big and make things and tell a story, right? And with this invisible string that he gave me. And so when I went to start String 13 years ago, and I was like, well, I'm not going to call it Magic String, but I just thought, well, it's kind of coming out of nowhere, because it kind of was at the time, just like some businesses just start that way. You don't mean intentional. I was like, well, string marketing, let's start there. And so that's where the name of String came about. And so while that String might not be relevant to practitioners, it's an interesting story. It helps people remember String and why it's called String. So
I remember, honestly, before I even knew you, I would have clients who worked with you and they'd say, yeah, I work with String marketing. Like String, interesting.
Yeah.
And so and honestly, it is one of the first things that I looked at on your website. Like, where did this name come from?
Right.
So it is really effective.
Yeah. So we've kept it and we tell the story, and it helps people. The story helps you remember the name. And it's a true story. It's great.
Yeah.
It's very unrelated to what we do to some extent. But it does help you remember. So those are some kind of things that you can leverage in your brand, and it's interesting. So
we've got some comments here too. Yeah. So this person shares with her audience her personal breast cancer journey and victory via natural methodologies, which is great. And let's see. So this person, again, sorry, I can't see your name. I don't currently share my story, but will start sharing about my life struggles with anxiety and stress starting from medical school. Very stressful.
That's so important.
And how I managed to build up my confidence and clean up my mindset. Yeah.
That's so important, because especially when if you're in a high position, like a doctor or any practitioner, people, like we were talking about earlier, that makes you personable, and it makes people feel like, well, if you struggle with that, it's not a big deal that I struggle with it, but I can do something about it, and
Right.
that is so important.
Yeah.
um and so it's hard for us to be vulnerable in our branding, and you have to determine what's personal and what's
Right.
not, but really think about how that story helps embolden your clients and give them confidence, not just only in you, but in themselves, in their own journey, in their
Give
own
some hope.
yeah, yeah,
Hope. I
hope,
mean, hope is huge.
yeah, right,
People, it's extremely powerful, kind
yeah,
of like a hidden little gem, but it does give people hope. And it, just like Stephanie, it makes you memorable and it
yeah,
helps people to connect with you in an otherwise busy, kind of cold
yeah.
online atmosphere.
Exactly. That can make the difference between you and that's your differentiation right there. They go to one website
Yeah.
where they're seeing a practitioner that has background expertise. They say they solve this and this and that. And
Yeah.
then they go to yours and you're talking about, well, I'm passionate about because I've had the same issues. I've had the same problem. You're their choice. Right
It
out,
it is so true.
hands
I've
down.
had that happen to me many, many, many
Yep.
times,
Yep.
where, like, people will say, "I heard your speak, I heard a little about your story, and I can so relate."
Yeah.
And that's why I reached out.
Yeah. I love it.
It's
I
super
love it.
fun. Let's see. Should I also share my story about,
Yeah.
why I chose to become a naturopathic doctor? How do I fit that into my messaging about
Mhm.
helping, busy adults with yeah, so, I can kinda jump in here.
Yeah.
So just, and this is how I teach my clients in terms of, like, so we've got a lot of stories to tell, right? Like, a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah.
I, over the years, have, I've kind of picked out different elements, to the stories that I share. But, like, in terms of, like, your brand story on your website, yeah, I would pick one that your target audience can relate to.
Yeah.
They see and hear your story, and they see themselves in
Mhm.
that story.
Yeah.
In terms of, like, the structure, so, and Stephanie, I'd be curious to know what you think about this. I actually learned kind of a structure from a writer who
Yeah.
actually used to work for Disney. And
Oh,
what he said, it's so interesting. He said, like, every story, no matter if it's Disney, your personal brand story, like, it pretty much has the same elements,
wow.
right? First of all, you kind of want to pick the story, right? What is it? And guys, it doesn't have to be a dissertation or like a huge, 50-page thing. You you got to make it pretty succinct, right?
Yeah.
So you kind of step one is you start with a little background info. You want to give people the lay of the land, and
Mhm.
specifically you're honing in on the struggle.
Mhm.
Okay.
Wow.
So skip all the other kind of stuff,
Mhm.
it's not
Cut
about
out the fluff. You don't need a lot of fluff.
it's
Yep.
not about facts, it's
Yep.
about feelings,
Yep.
right?
Oh,
How
yep.
did you feel when you were going through this,
Yeah.
right? Or alternatively, for those of you that don't have like a personal story about the struggle yourself, what you're going to talk about in the first part is your observation, perhaps of someone you love struggling and how hard that was, or you're just like so um consumed with concern about like other people struggling with this problem, right? But you're going to give a lay of the land and really hone in on how that made you feel.
Yeah.
Then the middle part, it's really kind of a three-part. It's like a sandwich, right? Kind of the middle part is, if you can think, it's like, what triggered you to change, or
Mhm.
what triggered your thought process
Yeah.
to
What's the
evolve?
apex of the story? What's
Yeah,
the transition moment? What is the mind shift you all of a sudden realized, or then this came about? Yep.
right. So I'll
Yep.
give you an example. So, like, in one of my stories, kind of the one that I share quite often when I'm doing webinars, and I remember this like it was yesterday. So I'm going along in life, have a nice little private practice. Life is good. I've got 2 little kids at home. I'm getting an MBA. I've got life is good. Playing some tennis, having fun. So then one day my husband comes home and he tells me the company that he's employed with is filing bankruptcy. I remember that day. Like,
Right.
I know where I was. I think I know what I had on.
Your ears just ring. Everything goes silent.
That
right.
was the day. So, like, some of you may not have a day that life changed. Some of you, it may have been subtle, like you came to the realization. I actually had a day where I was like, okay. And I remember saying this to people, my life, like everything's going to change now because I'm not going to just sit back and just kind of wait and see. Like, I'm just not wired that way.
Yeah.
So I got my butt in gear. I got really serious. And that I was truly at a choice point. Either just get a job or really amp things up.
job, right?
JOB, thank God. And so really, so my story is, so then I go into my solution.
Yeah.
I hired a mentor, like who really knew the ins and outs. I was like, and then, okay, so you've got the background kind of focused on feelings, what you did, like what transpired, what was your trigger, how did things change? And then the third part is, what do things look like today?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
what was the outcome? Yep.
The outcome, right? And then I guess there's a fourth part, and that is like just kind of wrapping it up in a bow by saying, and now I'm fortunate, I feel so privileged and honored to be able to help other people go through this journey.
Yeah.
So that's my methodology.
Yeah.
What do you think of that, Stephanie?
I love it. No, I love it. I think that is definitely, we like to use that particularly. People might not think of this and that type of method in this way, but case studies is an excellent way to do case studies more than just bland. We want case studies to be, what's the emotion that they had? What was the decision that they made?
Yeah.
What was the result of that? We
Yeah,
also like to use
parts.
Yeah, right. I love little frameworks like that. Like I like to use the what, so what, now what? That's another really, always putting emotion in all of those things, but what, and then why would they care, of course, and then now what should they do with that? You know what I mean? What happened now? And you could use that for action items, or you can use that just to kind of tell a story. There's a ton of different ways in which you do it, and there's different times in which you apply it. But
and it's really all about emotion. I mean, we're connecting with emotion, and like it's been shown over and over and over that there's so many studies that show this.
Yeah.
You cannot make a decision. Like human brains do not make a decision unless we tap into emotions.
Right.
Even really silly, like buying laundry detergents. They've done studies on this.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. I mean, that's what makes people move.
It is. So you guys got to tap into the emotions. And as a practitioner, so I'm wired like all of you. Okay. And this can be very hard. The one tip I will share is getting your facts all like lined up in chronological order doesn't matter. Little free tip for you.
Yeah, right. No, I love that. I love that. Yes. Karen, I really appreciate that. So you're mentioning your story of your personal and family experience with diabetes and why you want to help others. And I love that, especially because this not only helps in your marketing, but then like as it goes in, people want to work with somebody that they feel like they can be honest with. And if they're working with a practitioner that they're viewing as, oh, you're perfect, you've never really had to deal with this, I feel embarrassed to really be open, and that inhibits you to be able to be successful with them. And so people, when they really want to solve a problem, they're going to evaluate you and say, can I really be honest with this person about my struggle? And for you to show that you have a personal experience with this opens up the gates, and it's just like, I can open up to this person. And if you can make them feel like that in your marketing, they're going to sign up. They're going to sign up because they know that they've already made a connection with somebody that they feel like they can be open with.
Amazing. Well, we are already.
I know we went over time.
All right, guys. All right. So, Stephanie and I could literally
talk forever.
Talk about this forever. Yeah. I can't wait to see you, Stephanie, in New York City.
In New York, 1 month.
We're gonna have to, because I know we're just so passionate about this. I get so fired up. You guys are, you guys. I'll just say, the value you provide is way more, way more. It's exponential. And I just, it's really, really true.
We love it. We love it. We really want to make a big impact in this market and make sure, we want integrative functional to be just like chiropractor on every corner. We want it to be the first solution for people. That's what we want. So we're very passionate.
So, so you've got your slide here, guys. Grab Stephanie's, her worksheet here. Yeah. And I've got something for you too. Let me grab, just real quick. All right. So it's kind of a long URL, but I have a brand new infographic. And so be sure to grab that. It's lesliebitel.com / there's slashes, like dashes in between, 6-figure business building blocks. Kind of long, but lesliebitel.com / 6-figure business building block. So, once you grab that infographic, you will be invited to a 4-day live masterclass coming up soon. So, but I'm giving you kind of a little hint with the infographic up front. So be sure to grab that. And all right, so let me get rid of this because I think I'm blocking. Am I blocking the? No,
you can see the
URL. Okay, good. All right.
Yep.
All right, guys.
Springmarketing.com /asset.
So you got 2 PDFs to download today. All right, guys. Listen, it was great spending time with you, Stephanie. We could talk forever about this. We've got so much synergy.
Yeah,
right. Really fun.
We love it. Yeah.
So it was great, spending this hour with you. And thanks to each and every one of you that joined us today. I hope it was super valuable. And for those of you that are listening to the replay, drop us a comment, ask questions. We will circle back and get back with you. All right. So have a wonderful rest of your day. And I'll look forward to seeing you next week. All right, everybody. Bye for now.
Bye, everyone.